Okay, so this is the second attempt on reviewing Kyousougiga and Visual Information because the first one messed up. Thanks, Google.
Yeah.
So with me is Brian.
Overlord still sucks.
Oh, okay.
God, no one's gonna get that joke now because, damn it. Thanks, Google.
So this video is as promised on the live stream is going to it's going to be a series of videos where we talk about the previous works that we've done and what could be improved, what could be changed, what's good and what's bad, and so on and so forth, and all that fun stuff. Mainly, just to make sure that we're constantly thinking about the work that we've done, what's changed about it, what we've thought about, as we've learned more information, as we've read more. So first one here is Kyousougiga and Visual Information, which is really sort of the first big short form that was created here. So let's get this through. Before you start this, if anybody's watching this, before you start this, we highly recommend that you just watch the video. The link is going to be in the video description, but just check out the video. And so let's run through here. So we got to about 26 seconds, but so far what we've talked about is the really long title card.
We haven't talked about anything. No one here listening heard the last 30 minutes that you and I just did. They have no idea.
All right. Okay, so there's the title card.
The title card runs really long. But as you said, it runs on Windows Movie Maker. So I actually have to commend you. I had no idea you did this on Windows Movie Maker.
Windows Movie Maker.
I thought you were like already using your Premiere, Photoshop, whatever, for your DaVinci Resolve.
This is all Movie Maker. So we had the live reaction video.
Yeah, we basically just did a short form on Gakugarashi.
Yeah,
we talked about that. A great show, underrated. It's kind of been lost since last summer.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really have to go back into it, but I highly recommend everyone watch it again for visual information and storytelling. As Joe pointed out, that there is a distinction. That show has bushels of both.
Yes.
That's right.
It's a very fantastic show. Visually, it's very fantastic. Like storytelling, it's kind of hit and miss. But
well, the actual narrative is one thing, but much like Perfect Insider, a lot of the technical aspects are great.
Okay, so then we get into what what makes a good what's a good scene. Now I've mentioned this a little bit before, but I'm going to reiterate because the Hangouts cut out. But I have a little bit of trouble with defining what's a good scene, because I think it could be misconstrued as recontextualizing the question into a different topic altogether, because there's so many elements of a scene. I think it probably would have been better if I clarified that. For example, like what's a good example? And that seems like a little like pedantic to do, but I think it's an important distinction to make.
Well, it's funny because he used multiple scenes in this short form.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think no one called you out on what's a good scene then, because you didn't do a scene breakdown. Yep. But you could have said what.
I could have said sequence.
Yes, there we go. What is a good sequence?
Yeah.
Or the ever popular cut.
Yeah.
No, that was a joke. That was a joke. Man, we make all these referential jokes, and I wonder how many people actually get them. I know some people do.
Some people do.
Looking at you, Roger.
So moving on.
It's a good sequence of scenes.
Well, a sequence is literally a sequence of scenes.
I know, but some people,
Yeah, that's true. Somebody could have been like a sequence of what, and be like, oh no. That's true. What's a good scene? So this is where. So if you can see here, the white of the word here is not exactly the white of the orb.
Man, we had like
because of Windows Movie Maker.
We had this like great discussion earlier, and now I feel like we're just like we had this all talk about like the video and like aspects of what we thought about the video, and then we were gonna do this whole like shit talking, your editing and stuff, and now I feel like we're just gonna shit talk, and that's a real bummer because I feel like we had a lot of positives to say about this video.
Hey man, whatever, it's fine, it's fine. So Windows Movie Maker strikes again.
You know what I noticed is you don't really have any hanging chads, any hanging edits going on.
In my older videos, I do. I try and avoid them, but I do.
I don't remember seeing any in this.
I think there's one in this one, but I'll see. We'll see.
I think we will because you're skipping. You're not playing.
So we get into here. So okay, so Ria Matsumoto.
It's a bonsai tree, a very big one at that. What this tree's called? I know it's not a bonsai.
Oh, I don't know that particular tree. I'm not good with my trees.
It's dense.
Dense.
It's so dense.
It's dense.
Every scene is just packed full of information and things happening. What's the exact quote of that?
There's, every frame is so dense.
Yeah,
There's just so much.
George has really outdone himself. Diegetic, energetic. God, Joe, you sound like a fucking CEO in this.
Okay, so I have a problem with this one. Because I've essentially said it's diegetic, energetic, and dense, but I never really expand on this. I just
make a statement and then never return to it.
I just kind of leave it.
I would also argue that this is not entirely dense of a show, like visually.
Yeah.
There are a lot of visual elements in the background, but it's not like it's not episode 1. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's very straightforward to parse out. So I think it's not really that dense. It's very clear. Diegetic is, and so diegetic in this context is kind of a non-word because, well, shit, everything is diegetic.
Well, what's interesting is we have never actually done or really expanded on the topic of diegetic and non-diegetic sound design in shows.
So it's funny because there's a video by a YouTuber named RC Anime who actually does talk about that in Serial Experiments Lane.
Oh yeah?
He talks about sound mixing and how it uses he calls it extra diegetic, but it's
extra diegetic.
It's kind of the same thing
I should watch
for most
that
purposes. But yeah,
I feel like most anime uses non-diegetic sound. And
a lot of, well, I mean, like diegetic and diegetic, meta-diegetic, and non-diegetic like sound is like, it's pretty much in every show.
Yeah,
it's pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, but no one's doing like Kubrickian levels of silent audio with only what the characters are doing. That doesn't happen in anime. So
there's probably
I'm sure
there's some scenes. I know, for instance, in Horo Musiko, there's some scenes where it is literally completely quiet, and all you hear is just the shuffling of clothes as they're moving.
Oh yeah.
So like,
totally off topic. The greatest diegetic scene I can think of is the end of Alien 1, where Ridley is, all the crew's just been murdered, and Ridley is to get to the escape pod while she's blowing up Mother and the ship. And there's like a 15-minute block of no music and nothing but sounds from in the ship. It is awesome.
Yeah, that is a fantastic way to use that.
Horror always uses diegetic sound. Go ahead.
Going back to Gakugurashi, Gakugurashi is actually very good at exploiting non-diegetic music. Primarily, it's funny because Gakugurashi actually has a diegetic transition, because remember in episode 4, it has the music player play music, and then that music starts diegetic, but then it shifts to non-diegetic.
Yeah, I actually remember we pointed that out during the live cast.
Yes. It was fantastic. Very simple, very good use of transition from diegetic to non-diegetic music.
There was not enough Bruce Springsteen in that show.
There was not enough Bruce Springsteen, unfortunately. there was not enough Jungle Land.
Not enough Jungle Land. Not enough there was quite a few Stan references, but not enough Jungle Land.
Yeah. So let's see here. Dance. We should keep the Gakugurashi stuff to a minimum because we have a Gakugurashi short form.
Hey man, I mean we'll get there at some point, and then we can talk about Kyousougiga then.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. So starts off from the town. Okay, it goes from the town to the temple.
You don't have to give us a friend. Now we see leaves falling.
Oh, leaves. Okay, blossoms, butterfly.
So I really like this right here. So this meditative scene, it shows the butterfly flying past his face, and he doesn't even react. That is a sign that he is basically lost in meditation and perfectly calm. And the butterfly conveys that, because a normal person would wake up or open their eyes and be, what the fuck is going on? There's a butterfly in my face. So he is, and also the butterfly feels comfortable enough to float in front of him.
Yes.
So it's been there a long time, not moving.
Yeah, so the argument that I made in this particular scene was that the butterfly essentially injects energy into his calm state, which I think is, I think your interpretation of the scene is much more compelling. So, which is essentially just to stress the sort of animism that he has.
Yeah, but I could also agree with what you're saying, that because I know what happens next, that something is about to rock his serenity, and the butterfly is the beginning of that. You know, it is the butterfly flapping its wings, that metaphor. It is essentially, the butterfly is a metaphor for your peace is about to be broken. This is one little thing that is entering your life intrusively. Now something else will intrude.
Yes, because the butterfly is literally the only thing in there that literally moves.
Yeah. So I think both interpretations are right and can be right.
Yes, and we have to remember, again, folks, we have to remember, this is something that really bothers me. But like a lot of people seem to come to the conclusion that that analysis cannot be polymorphic, which is really strange. One thing can mean multiple things.
Well, this is the internet where everything's binary.
Yeah, that's true.
You either love it or you hate it, and if you hate it, you're a fascist.
Yeah. So let's continue from there. Okay, so we have the kids, the dragon. So this is a really good setup, and this is really fun. This is I think, a really fun scene because you have the dragon, but the funny thing here is just this completely dopey dog, and
who shows up multiple times.
Yes, the dog shows up multiple times, and it's really funny because the dog and how you can see I think a more effective way to describe this scene in all of its entirety is just how many rules that are being used in this one specific shot. And that is, it essentially establishes his power, which is that he can create things by drawing or writing about them. It establishes that people aren't familiar with his powers. The kids there don't like it. And it shows that by expressing kids, by using kids, it shows that the town still doesn't like it, because if it shows like elderly people not responding well to it, okay, you can say something like, okay, well, that's just the elderly, but what about the new generation? But like, if the new generation isn't responding well to him, you know, he's still isolated. And the fact that the dog is there just completely dopey, it just shows how normalized the dog is to his presence. So there's a lot of things happening in this scene.
I also like the visual balance of the scene, especially with the dragon moving in the background and the way the pillars cut off sections of the dragon from itself. I really like.
Well, it's really interesting as well, because like the way this picture is framed and how the pillars are framed, it does create a sort of painterly vibe to it, where like this is the very exact center, and it's really interesting. The pillars, I definitely agree. The pillars definitely keep the dragon enclosed within that space.
Almost like it's a prison.
Yep. Yeah. So
there's a Shibu Inu. I love it. What year is it supposed to take place in?
I don't know. I think it's just supposed to be. I don't remember. I might have given a year, but I think it's just like nondescript old medieval Japan.
So like 1800s maybe, 18, 19, early 19,
Possibly.
pre-imperial rule.
Definitely pre-imperial.
Because they're still dressed as if it's like I kind of feel like it has to be the 1800s, like just before the rise of the electricity.
I think it's. I'm pretty sure it is pre. I'm pretty sure it is pre Bakumatsu because it references. I believe it references Kyoto as the center as the capital. So so the capital hasn't moved to Edo yet. So there are 2 points here that I think are. So I think the old man moving. I think the old man moving across the gate where the kids come from themselves are. I think that is still a viable argument because he does move pretty quickly.
Well, that is a very old. That happens here in the West. That is a very old, like wives' tale, or like I don't know what. Like you hold your breath when you pass an evil place. You run past.
It's superstition.
Yeah, it's super. Thank you, superstition. That holds true, I believe, across multiple cultures.
Yeah. I think the observation that I made here could have been condensed much more cleanly if I just focused on the old man, not really the direction of the kids, because that's sort of a non-element. It's kind of ipso facto given the gate, so it's kind of redundant.
I think it's an establishing shot that also has a little bit of information in it. What you could have done is grayed out everything but the old man.
I mean, like, I could, but at the time, Windows Movie Maker.
Oh, I know. But the scene is very cluttered.
Yes.
And it's intentionally so. I believe it's trying to convey that.
I think it's trying to contrast like the town with where he lives, because where he lives is completely barren and isolated.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's trying to show that there is life here, that even though like it looks like he's alone in this Buddhist temple in the middle of nowhere, he's actually not. And it's interesting that the town knows of his presence and his powers and puts up with it. Like they could very easily show up at the gates with pitchforks shouting Frankenstein, Frankenstein.
Well, it's interesting because there is literally a walkway to his temple, or it's implied to be an avenue to get to his temple. So there is some sort of implicit endorsement that exists or did exist at one point. But the fact that the man walks by really quickly suggests that it's no longer there.
Well, in Chinese and Japanese culture, the wall and the gate, there's so much symbolism around both structures that I feel like that would be a whole video that we'd have to research to talk about. Yeah. But I do know that there is a lot going on with walls and gates in Japan and in China. The Shinto gates in Japan are very famous, and everything is about crossing thresholds. Yeah, you said it, sorry. That just shows my American ignorance. Everything is about crossing thresholds, crossing through worlds, and gates and walls are barriers between these, and it's a part of philosophy that is in both cultures. I definitely know in China because of the walled city and everything, but I'm just talking off the head. I would have to research more, but I know there's a lot going on with that.
Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. So it cuts to Kodo, and it does a match cut, which I think is incredibly clever.
And once again, the dog doesn't care.
Yeah, the dopey dog exists. I think this is really sort of the first scene where Matsumoto. I think this is like the first scene that really shows how clever a director, like how clever directing this show has, I would say.
Yeah.
Because we've established, so it's sort of a signifying callback. So the first time we get the bars is the dragon. The dragon's closed off by the bars. Mio is closed off by the bars. Second time we get the bars, we get them closed off again. So it's always looking outside in, sort of has this voyeuristic effect that also establishes the temple as a prison. And along with isolation, it sort of magnifies it. So it constantly builds on the previous scene.
I would also, before you move on, I would also like to say that this is now 2 times we've seen something supernatural happen, and 2 times the supernatural have been blocked off from him through bars. The first time the dragon was behind him in kind of a frame, which is implying that it was outside of the real world and behind him. Now we have the bunny is separated from him by another pillar, saying that it is once again outside of the real world. So I think he knows they exist, but we've gotten 2 framing shots with them completely separated from him, as if to further signify that they are supernatural, they don't belong.
Yeah, like he knows they exist because his power is that he can create things by drawing it. And he's drawn Kodo.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying that like it's his imagination, and it's further distancing it from him, or it's further distancing his lack of he, just like the dog, he has no reaction to them.
Yeah, I think he's just normalized to it.
Yeah.
So then it goes. So we've now, this is interesting. We've got more butterflies here. So we've got more butterflies here. First one, we've got the first butterfly, and then so I think if we take a look at if we remember the first butterfly, there was only 1, but now we've got 4, and I think they can also be a stand-in for the sort of.
There's 5.
There's 5.
Yeah, one's on the bunny. One's in the supernatural world with the bunny.
Yes.
Notice how different the lighting is between the bunny's world and the real world.
Yes, there's very clear delineation between darkness and light. And I think this is really important because, like, if you completely just cut off this section and focus only on here, you could make an argument that this is lit only by candles or lit only at night. However, if we take a look at the lighting here suggests that it's actually it's actually at the very least at sunset. It probably might be at magic hour.
Yeah.
So it's very clever. The pillar is incredibly important within the shot.
And even the pillar is lit. You can see half of the pillar is lit. So that would state that there should be some light in the bunny's side of the screen, but there's none.
Yep.
Supernatural. Ooh. But there is a butterfly there.
Yes. I think the butterflies might be interpreted as sort of connecting these worlds together.
They often get interpreted as mystical elements anyways, or they're often used as that.
Well, and this is off the top of my head, so someone feel free to correct me, but if I'm not mistaken, butterflies in Japanese mythology are usually considered sort of gatekeepers.
You would know what? I don't know. Yeah.
So like a black butterfly, for instance, is oftentimes used as a metonym for gatekeeping. Someone's gonna die.
This is getting to bones now. God, we have such a through line through all of our shows.
Yeah.
I love what's about to happen next. The camera tilts like 5 degrees to the left.
Yeah, so we get the heart. And then
so
it just
do
keeps
all
that.
Of his drawings love them?
And then we got the shift. Like we got the shift. So that shift. That is ridiculous. That is ridiculously clever. Because it intrudes the bodhisattva from, which is essentially off frame, but it still keeps the bunny, it still keeps Kodo separated, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, I really like it too. I wish I knew more about this religion because I could say more as to what the importance behind it is. I understand that there has to be some importance. I just can't tell you what.
It's really close. It's a mix between like animism and Buddhism.
Yeah, but they had it off screen, and then all of a sudden it just cuts it. It visibly and forcefully puts it on screen, And is there a duality going on here? Is he conflicted between his power and his religion?
I think it introduces the bodhisattva as a conversing partner. So
Yeah.
like what exists within this sort of macro frame is Kodo, Mio, the dog, and then when it does the slight shift, all of a sudden the bodhisattva comes into the conversation. So it's now we've got a fourth actor.
And is this where that woman comes from?
Yes.
So there you go. That explains that. The butterflies and the bodhisattva, and then the woman. I think it's just once again another intrusion of his space.
Yeah. So so this is actually the bodhisattva. So this is the bodhisattva. So now we've got the bodhisattva. We've got the bunny.
I like the clockwork universe going on in the background.
Yep. And I never talked about height.
Yeah, you mentioned it, but never talked about it.
Yeah. This is a great example of where this is a great example of where if you turn off all of the sound and you turn off the subtitles, you can still figure out what's going on because it's established the bodhisattva and then it's established Kodo and then it essentially breaks the barrier. It breaks the barrier and then now the bodhisattva and Kodo are in close embrace. And we had the heart. Okay, so this is where it breaks. This is where it breaks. And I think this is a fantastic shift. So now instead of having the pillars out in front and he's stuck in behind, we get to see from the inside out. And so the pillars essentially now end up being I would say they end up being less prison-like and more as just sort of difference divides.
I would say that they are now windows to the outside world. This is the first time the camera has crossed the axial line,
yep.
And we are now able to see his view out, where before we were looking in on him, kind of as an outsider. Now we are inside with him. I would say the shot is almost claustrophobic because even though we could see this huge valley out in front of him, the space inside is still like, I don't know, it feels very tight to me.
Yeah.
It's dark in there. Look how bright it is outside and look how dark it is in the room.
Yeah, I think it's how it's playing with depth because if we take a look at, like, for instance, this one here, if we look at the bars here, the bars are really big. They're really close. So which is something, it's pretty close to what we've got like a pretty much a close shot of these bars here, and they give a lot of space. But when we go back to this one here, there's 3 bars. There's 3 bars, and they're actually fairly linked close together.
And we can assume there's a 4th and a 5th just off screen.
Yeah. So goes. Okay, so Kodo comes in. So Kodo, the bunny, comes in. Her placement here is fantastic because now we've got the bars still here, so they still function as sort of naturally framed barriers to cross. And how she crosses them, I think, is really important because she literally just walks right across.
Crossing the threshold.
Yep.
Yeah.
Breaks the barrier.
And then she's intruding on him.
Yep. Absolutely awesome.
Also, for the first time, there are now cherry blossom leaves in the temple when there used to not be.
Yes, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, so it looks like they came in with her.
Yes.
So when she crossed in, they came over from the outside inside with her.
Yes. So yeah, we're seeing leaves coming in now. And so this is like an example again of, I think, where height can establish a relationship. How like Kyousougiga loves to use height, and all the characters are situated. Like the characters who tend to have control tend to be a little bit taller in some ways. I think this could have been more effective as a point on its own. And sort of at this stage, it's sort of a tidbit.
This specific scene moves so fast that I don't know how good of an example it is for the height power structure.
Yeah.
They move really fast, pushing each other back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's possible that it could be more compelling as like an argument for just for personalities clashing.
Oh, I would say that that's definitely what's going on here.
Yeah.
Sex.
So so it's funny because one of the comments on Reddit was like was making fun of what I said here, which is like blossoming flower suggesting love, and then he's just like, oh, very subtle, has the word love, and that is a very notable thing to. That is very notable. The reason why I said that was because when I wrote the script, I didn't remember that it said love. I just thought, like, I just remembered that the flower blossomed. So I was just like, okay, I got this. And then it said love, and I was just like, I'm not re-recording this.
I'm not going to lie. The first time I saw this, I did not realize it also said love because I was so focused on the flower.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, you know, some people, the fact that they put love there shows that they've also felt that people would not get that the flower meant love. You know, like when the rocket ship goes off and a train enters a tunnel, like there's a lot of metaphors for what's happening.
Oh, the Simpsons reference.
Yeah. Or, you know what, they probably were, they could have been forced to put love over it because someone said, wait, they're having sex? And they said, no, they're falling in love. Well, the flower is blossoming, kind of seems like sex to me. So then someone was like, we better heavy-handedly say love.
That's possible. Someone could have mentioned that, yeah.
I mean, it almost, like, doesn't this look like it was done in post? Like, look how much different the love is from everything else.
It does look like one of those like word art things.
Yeah, it's like some censorship editor was like, "Holy shit! No! Put something over this."
Yeah, love. Okay, so this is where I pretty much play a montage 4 times in a row because I have nothing else to really put in.
Well, this is a great montage. And
it is a great montage.
It says a lot about both these characters over the course of a year, because I believe that's what goes by as a year.
Yeah, it's passage of time. Yep, a year.
Look how separated they are. They're never in the same frame together. They're always separated, and they cross the screen at one point, but they're never in the same frame.
Yep.
So they don't get along?
I think it's supposed to establish a warming up of feeling, because okay, so there's well, Brian, you already know this, but in case people watching this aren't familiar with the term, but there's a term called translatory symmetry, and it's not like something that's symmetrical, but something that follows a pattern. So if we apply translatory symmetry to this, we can actually figure out, like, there's actually something very clever here. So this is spring. So this is spring. This is what they are at spring. And then we have summer. And then we have fall. And then we have winter. And we have spring. And then we have, and so as you can see, so if you take a look at summer here, they are closer. They are in relatively similar positions, but they're closer. So as you can see here, from spring to the next summer. Oh, no. Well, I'll just let it run. So as you can see here, from spring, autumn. So essentially, they're getting closer and closer, and it just and I had to repeat the montage 4 times. So yeah. This is not them breaking apart or anything.
Just let it go, man.
I literally repeated the scene, but as you can see, like, they're getting closer and closer,
and it ends with them in the same frame.
Yeah.
So it took them a year and a half to get close to each other.
Yeah, so I think so I made the argument that, like, where they were within the frame sort of created this sort of balance. I think that argument is not as compelling as the argument that it's more related to translatory symmetry, where, like, each successive season puts them slightly closer and closer together. Brian, you still there?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry. I didn't know if you wanted me to respond. I thought you were about to hit play. Yeah, I agree. That is a great montage. I think you could have done a whole video on that montage.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So
moving on to okay, so we got the moon. Yeah, so we got the. Okay, so this is where like it completely ends, and I think the shot to I think the one sort of the shot that pulls away to the moon and then it pulls back to them. I think it's great because it essentially functions as a visual bookend where it says, well, this is where the montage is going to end, and then it just ends up on this one specific element here, and I think it's fantastic because
now they're touching each other too.
yeah. Okay, so this is where I think it could have been. I could have probably edited it much better.
I just want to point out how phallic all the imagery is going on in this specific frame, from the pomegranates to the carrots. There's a lot of sex going on in this frame, and then we get our creeping elf on the bottom right.
So this is Haruki. It's a persona from Persona.
Persona 4?
Persona 3 and 4.
I guess I didn't recognize her.
I couldn't,
like, what the hell is this?
I couldn't find a high resolution picture of the actual Demon Haruki, so I was just like, I'll just use the character from Persona. I think the shot could have probably been more. I probably could have done something a little bit more exciting with the shot. Well, like if it was me now, I probably would have done something more exciting. I probably could have been able to cut these out and then just sort of put them in as objects and move them around as objects. But I mean, like, again, this is sort of Windows Movie Maker limitations here. Okay, so we got the L cut to Yakushimaru. The L cut is essentially where the audio and the visuals don't sufficiently cut. When you look at it on a timeline, it looks like an L shape for anybody who's curious as to what the L cut is. It's where audio bleeds. It's where audio bleeds, but the cut doesn't. So it just cuts. If anybody's
from you
curious.
or from the show?
Oh, from the show.
Okay, I couldn't tell if you were talking about you or the show.
Oh, okay, yeah, it happens in the show. Like, so in this
the
case,
audio jumps ahead of the visuals.
Yes.
Yeah, those are good cuts. They help with establishment of the next scene. Also, yeah, specifically with this, the camera is now in a position that we've not seen before, very close in this kid's face, as an introductory for this kid, I am assuming.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the previous shot, Kodo is calling his name. So she's calling his name, but it hasn't cut to his face yet, and then it cuts to his face. So that's where the L cut happens. So then we got Yakushimaru. So this is the wide angle.
Just play some yakety sax in the background, it would be great.
This is really fantastic. Because it's sort of like, you know, we've got the fisheye, we've got the wide angle fisheye, but it also shows us like the overarching structure of the place, where and I think it's really important here because now we have the open door here, which I think is cool because as the family gets introduced more and more, as the family comes in, it goes from what looks like a prison, what sort of has a prison vibe, to, well, it's becoming sort of like
open.
Yeah, it's becoming open. It's starting to feel more like a house.
What is also interesting about this is the various shots used of the inside of the temple. I don't know how big or small the temple is now. Before, I would have said that the temple is very big, and now looking at it, the temple looks very small. or relatively small compared to how I thought it was before.
Mm-hmm.
And then given the background and where they're at, I have a lot of questions about the physical space of this temple.
I think that's the point. I think
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's the point.
Yeah.
It's intentional. It's just I'm like, whoa, what's going? It's part of the supernatural element of what's going on here.
Yeah, it's definitely playing with depth.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think the fisheye really works really well for this one here, because you have him perfectly centered. You have him perfectly centered right down the center line, and then you have the fisheye, essentially these small slits. Essentially, they all lead. So it's like all of the elements lead into him. So all of these pieces lead into him. It creates essentially a perfect 1-point perspective shot.
Yeah. What's the words on the outside? Was that in the show or?
Oh, that's in the show, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a good contrast. It shows that they don't really. He doesn't get along with him.
Is this a memory?
Hmm?
Is this a memory?
I think it's sort of like one of those like character establishing clips.
It's a flashback, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
You can tell it's a flashback because they are outside and the background is not filled in, so it's fuzzy like a memory. He doesn't remember the finer details of the background. He only remembers the dog. They were on a bench and he was talking to his uncle or brother.
Well, it's his adopted father.
Fine. I don't know. But you understand what I'm saying? Like, it looks like a painting. It looks like a memory.
Yeah, it's very much it's very reminiscent of sort of a semi-dream state.
Yeah, this is not happening now.
Yeah,
it's a flashback.
Okay, so I think that's where the. I think that's just a. No, that's just a. No, that's not a hanging shot yet. That's just me trying to cut really fast. Okay, so all the characters, but they all follow the same general pattern.
So looking back at this now, I feel like we've gotten past the most interesting part of this video.
Mm-hmm.
The visual information and the interesting aspects were all, I think we already covered, and all this other stuff I feel like is now fluff.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be insulting. I just feel like no, but you know what I mean. Like the more focused and impactful stuff we'd already covered with the temple, the montage, and now this is getting outside of the video almost.
Yeah,
or the original topic.
This element is like it's a different topic now.
Yeah.
Like this is gone from like this is an example of where the visual aspect creates information and more of this is good directing.
Yes.
Okay, so this is redundant with the first one because it's already established that it will transition time through seasons. So this is redundant.
But it is good to show, like, the show does have great directing and great storytelling throughout. There's no, like, someone's not saying, and the seasons change and putting up timelines and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, let's keep going. See, look. No. Go back to that last shot of the temple in the mountains. Just let it play. Pause it. So look at this. That the temple is in isolation in the middle of the woods. Yet we saw earlier that the path to the temple is in this very crowded, metropolitan-esque town. Yeah, it further goes to point out that this is out of space and time. It's very supernatural.
Yep.
There's a very. I know I mentioned XXaholic before, but that vibe I'm getting still with this show of. It's reality is distorted in this world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it wants to really stress that sort of isolation.
Oh yeah, incredibly isolated.
Okay, so this comes up in episode 5, I believe. My memory serves me correctly. This comes up in episode 5, but we can see the bars show up again. So once again, the bars show up.
Getting some mushishi action going on.
The pomegranates. Bodhisattva. And so this is really interesting because we remember the one with Kodo and Mule over here. And then now we essentially get the exact same thing later in a few episodes with
the boy.
Yeah, I think he's also called Mule. I'll just call him the boy and the monk.
The Nino.
Yeah. And so like we get the same general idea, but I think this is really cool because it's funny because when you look at Kodo and how she strides across to meet him, she's got this trepidation with this particular montage, which I think is very important. Like she's very mindful, she's very careful.
Well, before she was clearly intruding.
Yeah.
But how many years later is this?
I think it's quite a while later.
We've got through like 3 season changes.
This
several
is
season changes.
6 or 7, I think. And so they essentially, so this is really cool. So they are essentially, he's got their backs turned to them. And you can see the shadow. You can see the shadows here. The depth means that he's actually sitting in front of them. And they're talking. He's sort of by there. And then
this is a Twilight shot.
Pardon?
He's Twilight. He sat in one location for a year.
And he turns around. He turns around to Kodo calling. And then now he's essentially the one who's breaking the barrier.
And he's older now.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it is very important. This particular shot, how it contrasts with Kodo, how time is important, and not only time, but the space that comes with time.
Time and space.
Yep.
And look, that's a callback shot right there.
Yep.
Those two are leaning against each other, and they're kind of enjoying a moment. And then the kid's there, which is he wasn't there in the original shot.
Yep. So let's see here. This calls back to.
No, further.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
it's further. It's right here after this.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah, so that's a callback shot, which is a very good technique, and also rewards observant viewers and repeat viewers. So
yes, it is it's really great, and it shows it shows what's added. So it's overall like this. I feel like we talked more about the actual scene itself than this. We talked more about the sequence itself than the actual video talking about the sequence.
Well, that's kind of what the point of this whole thing is.
Yeah. Overall, I think this video, when it relates to this video could have been a little shorter and it could have been more concise. It's pretty short as it is, but I think you probably could have been cut down to like 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, I think once that montage. Well, now that we got this reincorporating shot, I think the payoff works because of this reincorporation shot. But you're right. I feel like the original breakdown of the introduction, lead in, and then ending with that montage was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of hung around for an extra minute until we got to this reincorporation shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the middle part, like I think the part I think around this part here, when you start
Yeah.
showing all the other characters, like I don't think it's a very good I don't think it's a very I don't think this part in the video is a very good way to show visual information because it's primarily expository. It literally just introduces these characters and just runs with it.
Yeah.
Whereas like all the other parts before it were much subtler. So this part here probably could have been trimmed out. And then I probably, instead of using that part to introduce the characters, actually just use this later part here to talk about how it called back to the previous shots here.
But would it have worked if you had not set up the kid?
It may not have. Yeah, it might not have.
So we will never know.
Overall, I would say I still agree with the arguments I'm making in this video.
Yeah, I do too.
I think some of them are not the best arguments. Some of them could be probably just cropped out for the sake of being concise. But I think overall, the argument I'm trying to make still works.
Yeah, I agree. As we mentioned earlier, you're kind of just pointing out a good director and letting her do the work. So
yeah, it's
hard to say that this would not hold up later.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be all like, yeah, I don't think this is as good because like Matsumoto has definitely defined herself as a very good director. So it's just it's the low hanging fruit of visual analysis.
Yes, that's what we love here.
This is what this video is. It's low hanging fruit. It's essentially saying, well, of course, you know, Matsumoto is a good director. Of course, it's going to be a great scene. And I think later on, once we get to like some of the more difficult videos, that's really gonna start coming in, where we're getting to people who may not be known for having good directing, and then we're gonna run that through. That's gonna be magical.
Looking at you, Overwatch or Overlord, and Overwatch.
All the Overlord one is going to be interesting.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that is pretty much it. Anything else to add, Brian?
No, I mean, this is a very interesting looking show. I've never seen it, but I might want to. Simply because of
it's 10 episodes.
And I feel like that is good, almost to the show's benefit that it's short. Yeah. Even from this little clip, I feel like this is one of those shows that benefits from the shorter time. And as people know, I have a lot to say about 12-episode format. So, yeah, good job, Joe, from a year ago.
A year ago,
Joe.
A year. So, yes, that is pretty much it. If you guys like this sort of format, let us know in the comments. If you got any questions or concerns, as always, leave them in the comment section below. If you came from the main channel and just checking this stuff out, definitely subscribe. You know, like it's not as tightly focused as the main channel, but like there's hopefully a lot of fun stuff that we do on here.
Yeah, this is the bullshit channel.
Yeah, this is yep, that's pretty much it.
Because Joe was worried that we were losing too many subs from all our bullshit on the other channel.
We're just like, oh no, what do we do? What is our next video?
I think it is YouTube's pause and selects. Let's see. The next video, great dead air time here, is Flag in Modern Warfare.
Ooh.
That was not popular then, and I imagine it'll be the same now.
It will not be popular now. That's going to be interesting.
And then after that, we have probably my favorite video is in praise of Humble Ramen.
In praise of Humble Ramen.
I love that video. Everyone should go back and watch it. It is a great, quick little video about ramen. And surprisingly, it was very contentious, which I was which was great. I loved it.
It was definitely something.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any like comments that we should address here.
Oh, this is the best part. Go back and look at the old comments.
All the old comments here. Okay, let's start from the bottom here.
Our comments are gonna look different for each of us. So
yeah. See here. Fan of the director. Did you check out Monster Girls? Oh, okay. That was when Drixie recommended us Monster Girls Quest because we were doing the Monster Musume live reactions.
Oh, we never did that.
You actually did it.
Let's do that. That's because we've been threatening to do this on our live reactions then.
Yeah. Yeah, because a lot of people are just like, why don't you just make a video about it? I was like, okay, well, I will. So glad.
I don't stop talking over the show. Just make a video. God.
Yeah, that was a great comment on our Overlord videos.
This show needs a dub. Wow, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that, and that was from a month ago.
Hey man, it's just.
And look at Joe. Look at Joe. Well, we have a lot of comments from a month ago. I guess because we got that huge viewer spike.
Yeah, like yeah, because like a lot of people like that joined us, they literally. I've been told that a lot of people just binge the entire channel.
Yeah, I mean that's what I did with Nerdwriter and all that stuff.
Like it just runs through the whole thing. It's just like oh boy. See here, really so much disappointed me with the slapstick world building obsession with modern otaku tropes that didn't feel like they fit the introduction. Maybe want to feel something introductions that actually what we got. That's fair. I actually really like Kyousougiga, so it didn't really bother me, but I can understand why someone would have that issue.
Yeah.
Age. Yeah, so we didn't really have anything like that had to be addressed. So overall, that was the video. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And as always, leave us a comment or question or concern, all that kind of stuff. And
give us a like, give us a subscribe.
Yes,
welcome to the Sword of Damocles.
welcome to the Sword of Damocles. Yes, that is pretty much it. And yeah, get ready for Flag.
Get hype. Get hype on that Flag. Get hype on Cool Japan and split screens and Gate with Flag.
Oh God.